Hello. Well, Hex did an interesting thing. They went ahead and released a new game mode. It's a PvE arena. It's a very, very interesting game mode. It introduces actually a more sort of a gauntlet of enemies, all with different reward tiers and different sets of enemies, different unique archetypes, custom abilities, custom cards. It's very interesting to play through. And along with this, they released a set of equipment. I don't know how many there are, probably like 200 some. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. And then they released a bunch of PvE cards. Now, two PvE cards caught my attention in particular because they support a very, well, at least one of them with the equipment, and the other one just inherently. They both support a very tempo style of gameplay. And tempo, if you're familiar with tempo from Action Gathering, normal games play out in a form of kind of card advantage where you're trying to gain a favorable trade with your opponent. You're trying to 2-for-1 them. And there is a tempo game on the board, but it's usually much more muted. It's usually more about what does your opponent have, what are you trying to play around, how are you trying to avoid losing card advantage. Games typically peter out in the stage of both players top decking, hoping to just get luckier on the draw, or winning on board advantage, just completely blowing out their opponent and taking the game from there. Tempo, however, is a deck plan that is more focused on straining your opponent's resources rather than trying to win on board. And certainly on board is a thing that occurs in Tempo. Tempo actually really loves the board. Tempo actually loves the board even more than normal games do. So you're constraining the resources, preventing them from building up their board, and then trying to win the game that way. Now, there are a bunch of set 1 cards that were very, very powerful. Thunderbird is just a bomb. Obviously, if your opponent throws it a blocker, it's very, very good, but we're trying to constrain our opponent's resources and stopping them from getting blockers out. Thunderbird can usually just win the game on its own. On top of that, we have Time Ripple and Buccaneer, both things that return creatures to their hand and make them cost more. These two cards have been very, very solid in pretty much every deck they've been featured in. Obviously, they support a tempo game plan, but there aren't a lot of really, really good cards for tempo, at least not in set 1. So those 3 cards are our set 1 carryovers, all very, very good. On top of that, we have access to some set 2 things. We have Minion of Yakuzan. Tempo really, really loves its 1-drop. Tempo loves 1-drops that are hard to remove. Tempo loves 1-drops that they can just kind of throw around haphazardly. And we also have some soft combos with the deck. With Minion, we have his equipment, which is very, very good. We'll talk about equipment at the end. We still around a very, very solid card. Pretty much any 1-drop is on our radar, and this is certainly the best for the deck. We also have Giant Mosquito. He's a little life drain flight guy. Flies over enemies, gains you life. He's not particularly amazing in most decks, but we do have his equipment, and we also have our hero, which synergizes very well with him. Another set 2 carryover we have is Field Tactician. Kind of an underwhelming card on the surface, but a very, very strong effect. It's a 2-1 body. Allows us to get in for the last couple of points of damage, or get in with the final strike of a Killipede. It's effectively a Time Ripple that is limited to the last turn of play, or just conveniently a 2-1 for 2, which isn't a terrible deal either. We also have Crackling Rot. It's about 50-50 whether this one is better than Murder. Most creatures you care about are small, usually Crackling Rot the small ones. If they're big, usually just Time Ripple them or Buccaneer them, so you don't really care about the Latin Murder not hitting, or Crackling Rot not hitting the big targets that Murder can. It does come up occasionally. The charge does come up occasionally on Crackling Rot. It's a 50-50 on which one's better. And then our final set 2 carryover is the Killipede. If he successfully deals damage to a creature or to a player twice, you win the game. And then if he's attacking, he automatically kills whatever is blocking him, which is super sweet. Very good tempo card, very, very good for winning games that aren't necessarily winnable any other way. And the AI appears to not quite understand that the second hit is always lethal from him, which is convenient. We occasionally comes up. Usually the opponent just doesn't have any say in it. Usually you just tap down all their stuff or win the game. Stormcall was a holdover. If I wasn't running Killipede, I'd probably run Stormcall. It's probably up in the air whether Stormcall is better than Killipede as well, but it's the Killipede. How can you not like the Killipede? I want to actually bring up Stormcall really quick here. Stormcall also has a very interesting equipment. Stormcalls have either create a Thunderbird, Cloud Titan, or Storm Colossus and put it into your hand. A very, very good card. Unfortunately, it is the boot slot, so we can't really run it because the Bloodworm boots are so much better. But yeah, Stormcall, Killipedes, whatever you prefer in this slot. I actually think Stormcall might be a little bit better, but I like Killipede. Actually, we'll do it like this. Weigh in 50-50. Sounds like a fun little experiment. Alright, so those are all the cards we're using. And then the PvE cards. Leeching Burrower. He has a life drain, and when he dies, double his attack and defense and shuffle it into your deck. Sweet. And then Water Elemental, which has Spell Shield, and whenever he deals damage to an opposing champion, create another Water Elemental and put it into play, so he just multiplies himself. These two cards are very, very good tempo cards. Water Elemental really likes it when your opponent's board is just completely manipulated. He has Spell Shield, so your opponent can't cast removal on him. He just wins the game against certain decks. Ember Spire, which comes to mind. And then Leeching Burrower is just, he's really, really hard to remove. And then his effects are decent, but I mean, he's certainly not mythic quality yet. We'll get to why he's he's legendary there. And let's talk about the equipment. So first up, Bloodsucker Helm. Giant Mosquitoes have lethal. Makes him a good defender, in addition to the fact that he's just an all-around solid card in combination with Benoshi. We'll talk about it in a bit. We only run 2 of them, so I mean, it's the best helmet in the deck, but it's not an amazing card. Let's deal with the boring ones first. Pendant of the Gravecrawler. Your minions buff every underground minion instead of just him. Very, very solid card. There are occasional times where you just have like a hand of like 3 minions and you're just like, well, I guess this can win the game like this. Whereas normally you just kind of be sad about that. It's a very, very good card. Comes up occasionally. The other pendant is the one that lets you shuffle your water elementals into your deck when they die, which actually isn't that good. A lot of times you don't want 8 elementals going into your deck. When your opponent field clears, you'd much rather be drawing the Leeching Burrowers. And then Running Gloves, your Crackling Rots get an extra charge for each other Crackling card in your graveyard. Pretty good. The Holy Grail here is the Time Piercing Javelin. Time Ripples get increase the cost of the card by 2 instead of 1. Basically the equivalent of having 8 Time Ripples in your deck, because, well, okay, not even close to that, but it's still all around a very, very solid card. The real ones, though, are the Leeching Burrowers. So let's start with the boring one. Your Leeching Burrowers have speed and crush, so they can swing the turn they come down, and then any additional damage dealt to your opponents, or any additional damage that would be in addition to whatever would kill the troop, goes over to your opponent's face, making Leeching Burrower an incredibly efficient finisher. And then on top of that, so if your opponent builds up a board and you manage to get a Leeching Burrower that's like 8/8, just, you know, crush his face and can't even block and absorbs very little damage. Very good finisher. And just makes the card just completely broken. And then, if that wasn't good enough, Rusted Chestplate. So now when your Leeching Burrower dies, it creates a second one to shuffle into your library. So the first one dies and you have 5 in your library. And then it doubles each of the Leeching Burrowers in your deck's attack and defense, which is amazing. It's actually technically not double. It's gains attack equal to its attack, defense equal to its defense, etc. But still a very, very, very solid card. And then we also have Benoshi to kind of tie it all together. Benoshi's ability, sacrifice a troop, give another troop +2/+2. Pretty sweet. Combos are very well with Giant Mosquito. Having a 3/3 life drain flight is much better than having a 1/1 life drain flight. Combos are very well with Leeching Burrower. Having a 4/4 Leeching Burrower die is obviously twice as good as having a 2/2 Leeching Burrower die. Combos are very well with Water Elemental. Lets your Water Elemental get through for a bit of extra damage. Very well with Minion. Not only can you sacrifice the minion, but also if you buff a minion, he keeps his buff when he goes underground. Very, very solid. Thunderbirds can swing through even faster. So all very, very effective stuff. There is one kind of a red flag with this deck that you might notice, and it's the fact that we have both Leeching Burrower, who has a 2 blood threshold cost, and Thunderbird, which has a 2 Sapphire threshold cost. You can't play these both on turn 2, and then even then you can't play one on turn 2 and then the other on turn 3. You have to wait till turn 4 to play them both. So that can occasionally be a bottleneck. To help alleviate this, we run 2 Shards of Fate in the deck. In addition to the 4 Shards of Cunning, it gives us 6 different dual lands. That's enough to rein it in. There's never really been a game where I haven't been able to cast both of them eventually. I usually have enough action other than that in the deck to be able to justify it. If it's a huge issue, you can probably consider dropping one of the Blood or the Sapphire Shards for a 3rd Shard of Fate, but I haven't actually had much of a problem. The Stormcall might tilt it over in favor of Sapphire, I'm not sure. But anyway, that's the deck. It does kind of look like a pile of cards, but keep in mind we do have a lot of cards that just win the game, and a lot of cards that are very, very hard to disrupt, a lot of cards that force your opponent to blow removal, and obviously you benefit from that removal. So, all in all, the deck is very, very good. A little bit of stuff to talk about here as well. Thunderbird wins games, Leeching Burrower wins games, Water Elemental wins games, Mini Valzukan can win games, Nushi Hero ability wins games. It's all very, very good in practice, and we can get to all that in a moment here. So that's the deck. I'm actually going to jump into a couple of games here. We'll play a couple of things out, show you a little bit of what happens. We'll do the what did I change my deck that I haven't already saved? I don't care. Alright. So we'll separate this into a couple of tiers. We'll do tier 2 as the one video, tier 3 as another video, tier 4 as a 4th video. I'll upload this one. If you want to watch those, I'll link the playlist in the comments. I'll put them all in the playlist, and we'll upload them all at once. So, without further ado, I will cut this off here, and then we can go on to the first set of rounds. Take care.